All right, as usual, we are doing a little wet your palate.
Well, we talked a lot about Boen.
And the failures and the fail fast mentality and the ideology behind branding.
And the storytelling actually behind the label and the wine, and compared to actually also maybe something that you might create in a think tank about what's cool in pop culture and what's going to grab people.
So we'll talk marketing-driven branding versus really organic branding. So I hope you all enjoy, and then we got a good Horrible Bosses story, too, about a Karen actually named Karen.
Yeah, a Karen named Karen, so you know it's going to be good.
Do you listen to Bill Burr?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a fan of Bill Burr, like his comedy and everything like that, but you're talking about his podcast?
Well, his podcast and also all of his comedy.
Yeah,
but
I've seen some of his
has
podcasts
such
too,
a dark view.
I love it, though.
Yeah.
He has not changed his shit. That's the thing I think right now is that, you know.
He stayed like 85% of the population needs to go.
What do you think about this? President? We should have, a comedian should be president by now. I think that's what.
What do you mean? We already had Trump. Dude, it was hilarious. You'd wake up in the morning and be like, dude, what is he going to say?
But a skilled comedian.
I mean, I would argue that he
not
actually
like you
had
tell
skill.
the jokes, like not like, you know.
I would say he had skill. I think he actually thought about the shit he was saying.
Okay, yeah.
Like
you think like
Shifty Adam Schiff. Like he made names up for everybody, like slightly derogatory names for everybody that was an opponent. And you just kind of look forward to like the bullshit he was going to come out with. And like, I mean, he got his shit done. He had a horrible bedside manner.
He's still on it too. He just got a gag order. Because he can't stop talking shit.
He just said that he would accept the Speaker of the House position. I'm not kidding. It's like, it's hilarious. And we're like, dude, that'd be hilarious. That'd be so funny.
What would you say? Like after all this is done, you just find out that like he was it was just kind of like it was all just like this big facade, dude. He just kind of like goes in like when he's alone, he kind of like takes off like all his shit. And you know, like I can't do a good
this
impression.
Whole thing, this is
but like
what do you call that? Method acting? Is that like
Like he's like he's like an Andy Kaufman.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
He could be
man on the moon, buddy.
I mean, you could say he's either very poor at choosing what he says, or he's beautifully precise. Like I don't know what the answer is.
Well, you did mention I think. I just want to say you did mention that you had to take a shower today because like to revamp and make you feel better.
No, I had to take a shower today because I was dragging so much this morning, like getting the kids all ready and whatever. They had like picture day.
Yeah.
And it's harvest and like all this shit, and I was like just not feeling great. And so yeah, I was like I gotta cut out and like take a shower. So when I didn't get to shower this morning.
Okay.
So I don't know if our first meeting, if you could smell me. I did the Italian shower.
I was sitting right next to you.
I did the Italian shower. I just like doused myself in cologne.
What was that you were wearing?
That was that was Agua de Parma.
Whoa.
It's not unlike the name, it does not smell like Parmesan cheese.
Dude, I remember just growing up at Dakar.
Did you have Dakar and Polo and like whatever?
Polo. I don't know. It was just like passed down. I mean, when you were young and just getting into cologne, like have you done that? Have you passed on your smell?
To the kids?
Like, do you forget?
I give them all the stuff that like I don't use, like, and some of it's nice, some of it's like, you know, whatever, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely started off with like Ralph Lauren, Polo.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. You started
Old
off with
Spice.
Like, Old Spice.
Dude, that's where I started. Old
shit.
Spice.
Yeah.
It was the aftershave in that like ceramic bottle, and you pulled the cap off the top, and then you doused it in your hand, and you're like, well, my dad gave me that as cologne, so like you put it in your hand and then just like put it on your neck or whatever else, and it wasn't a bad smell back then. Like you thought, like, oh yeah, I'm going to like 6th grade dance, I'm gonna smell fucking like awesome. All the girls are gonna go crazy, and they never did.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we also found out that
there you go. That's it. Do they still have that? The classique.
Isn't this stuff like secretly like we were finding out is like killing us?
This stuff causes cancer.
I actually smell good. But you smell damn good.
There is one thing I do want to talk about at some point is like the amount of ingredients that we have approved in the United States for food processing, for like what we can use in whatever foods are available compared to other countries. And like I think Japan just recently pulled some cereal snacks off of the shelf because there were some cancer-causing items. And like when we export wine, it's the same thing. They want an analysis that goes deep, deep, deep into what's in the wine. Like anything, like if we sprayed chemicals in the vineyard that could carry on into the wine, and there's a trace amount of that, they're like, nope, can't ship that. And I actually appreciate that. Like that's like we never have an issue with it, but like there are a lot of products out there that carry whatever chemicals, and it's not just pesticide residuals or whatever, but it's really also the ingredients that are approved and allowed by our government that are not allowed by other governments, and what effects do those have on us in the U.S. and our nutrition compared to how healthy the rest of the world is. Like, just take the EU as an example, or take most of Asia, like take Japan as an example. Like, it's a lot of really healthy people, and we all are pretty active. Like, I mean, it's not like, we have an obesity epidemic, if you want to call it that, but you're not seeing it to that extreme, and that's, I think a lot of that has to do with the ingredients. Like, I think it's something like 10,000 ingredients or chemicals or compounds, whatever you want to call it, 10,000 that are allowed here in the U.S. Or over 10,000 that are not allowed in other countries. Meaning that the ingredients that you'll get for a like product from the same company between here and Germany and Japan, they're going to be much more strict and much more simplified on their labels compared to that same like-for-like product, quote unquote, in the U.S.
I think Art has actually just brought up on the screen, and if you're just listening, he's just comparing the same type of, it looks like, products that are sold.
So these are both heaps of fruit here, I guess, Art, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a comparison between the U.S. and what the European Union gets.
Nice work on jumping on that. Okay, so
which one are...
I'm just going to count these real quick, okay? I'm going to call it like 30 to 35 ingredients in the American product. And some of those are like red 40 and, artificial strawberry flavor. Like, what is in that? Sodium sulfite for dehydrated apples. Okay, now for the ingredients for the, this was the EU?
That's correct.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 ingredients in that same product.
Wow.
So it's kind of fucked up. Like, it makes you want to just live off the grid, farm your own animals, farm your own little farm, grow your own fruits and vegetables. And like that, I mean, that is a dream of mine. I'd love to do that. But like, we live in a society nowadays. If I didn't have my kids go to school and I was like, no, you're going to be learning how to live a life that's like, full and whatever. If you have a birth certificate and you're not going to school, you're going to get that kid taken away from you. And when I feel like we have a system of indoctrination. It's kind of sad to see. I'm sounding like conspiracy theorist a little bit, but
hey, I mean,
I think people are waking up to this shit now too.
And I think like that we've kind of talked about this too. I mean, you can say conspiracy theorist or conspiracy theory, and that has some kind of like negative connotation. But like, really, you're just saying that there's a theory of a conspiracy.
There is a theory of a conspiracy.
We've had some conspiracy theories that actually prove it to be.
It is weird
true.
That a lot of them have come up to be true recently,
which is scary.
Yeah, but then you look at this and you're like, okay, well, you can't refute the facts that the ingredients are actually quite different from these two same products in different regions, right?
You brought up,
So you're kind of like, what the fuck is going on with the product in the U.S. and why can't we make it more simplified? And is it a product of trying to get costs down? So you're using whatever engineered compounds that are going to get you that same flavor profile you want at a lower cost, so you can get to market at a lower cost. Like, whatever the goal is, efficiencies or who knows what, it's nonetheless, just make it pure, make it simple. Like, that's I would love to see a little bit more of that shit.
I agree, but I think we're talking about that a lot, like more like in society right now. I mean that. I mean, the whole like organic movement and stuff like that. But what it does do, right, is like open up a window for just more marketing of like, oh, now it's just like you want to sell people at a higher price some product that's supposed to be pure, but you also have to look out for those. You still have to look out for those products.
Yeah.
Just because you see organic on it, like, doesn't mean that, oh, it's safe. Like when they were putting like the fucking gluten-free on the bananas, like at Whole Foods, and you're like, it was a marketing thing, right? Because like some people would just be like, okay, great, this is a great banana. You're like, dude, did bananas have gluten?
Yeah, like it's like the process of like, I never even knew that they possibly had it, and now I know that those ones don't, at least. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So it's just that's bullshit marketing. Now, like, we do the same stuff. So like, we'll have a retailer, they'll actually like ask us like, oh, are you vegan? Are you gluten free? Are you like kosher or whatever? And so we're like, yeah. And so they're like, oh, can we put that on a like on the shelf?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, like all wine should really be gluten free. Like there's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's a gluten product out there that you can add as a fining agent, but I've never used one.
You said that before. You'd have to add it. Like
yeah, you'd have to add it. And same thing with vegan. So yeah, I know that there are like egg whites being the most traditional, so that would disqualify it from being vegan.
Yeah.
But our wines are gluten free and vegan, and it's like the fact that they're telling the consumer that not what they're actually saying is not all wines are gluten free and vegan, but this one is.
yes.
And so yeah, are we the direct beneficiary of that like secondary marketing? Yeah, we are, but everybody else has the same option because we are vegan and gluten free.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's a funny thing. Like, I don't really like seeing our wines up there. Like, that's not what we're going for. Like, we're not like hitching our wagon to just one ideology, right?
Yeah.
We're just trying to make fine wine. And the way we make that is with grapes, yeast, sulfur. That's like it, right? So pretty simple. But yeah, I mean that's I don't know. It's just it's a funny world we live in, man.
Well, I think this actually kind of leads into one of the big things we were going to be talking about with the wines here, because we were talking about Boen, which I think is a brand which is a big nod to the farmer, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to dive into this. I'll let you like take the reins on that, but I think it's great to be. I think it's a great lead-in because, dude, you're a farmer, right, bro?
That's right. That's you may not know this, but
you may not know this about me from my TikTok, but I also do
so
some
I've
farming.
always farming is like where the core of my experience started and what I still love to do. I do it way less now than I used to, but that's like the price of success, I guess, is that you bring a team in that helps you do the things that you used to do, and maybe they're the things you loved, maybe some of them are things you didn't love. But nonetheless, as you progress in business and then you have a larger scale business, then you're now managing the business rather than managing these individual pieces that you truly fell in love with. Like that's one of the things I loved about COVID was I'm not,
Wait, hold on. Can we?
No, what I loved about COVID was that we were essential, right? We as a farming and wine, or you call it food processing, wine making company, we were essential. So
Yeah.
I had a reason, and our team had a reason to be out in the vineyards, to be in the winery. And guess what?
Yes.
Our fucking offices were shut down
Yes.
because of like social distancing. And I loved that because I didn't have to go to the office. And I got to be out in the vineyards and out in the winery all the
And
time.
you
And
were.
I was like, dude, this is like fucking 2010 all again. I loved it. It was great. Yeah.
You were even fighting fires on your land.
Yeah, there
during
were a couple fires.
COVID time.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that. Like, I was just like, that was just more of a respect to the farmer. And Art even brought up one of your favorite quotes.
So this is like the core of it. So this is Daniel Webster in 1840. He was a senator, and he used this quote, and we adopted it kind of as the mantra of the brand Boen. Boen means the farm, and it was the first brand we created after we sold Mayomi. And the reason for naming it the farm was because I wanted to get back to my farming roots. And when you're building a brand that gets that big, you're just constantly putting money back in to grow it for the next year. So I was never able to acquire more land. Like the land we had is what we had. And I wanted to plant more grapes, farm more grapes, and all that. So the opportunity of selling Mayomi, a big part of that was being able to farm more and be able to sustain our growth more organically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that whole ideology came from. And so this is a quote, though, that I always loved and I felt greatly applies to the wine industry, like the fine wine industry and grape growing all the way through to winemaking. But I don't think Daniel Webster was talking about it in like specifically to the wine business or grape growing. He says, when tillage begins, other arts follow. The farmers, therefore, are the founders of human civilization. Now, let's take it piece by piece. So, when tillage begins, other arts follow. Apply that to anything. So, as soon as you start farming something, what does that give you the opportunity to do? Whether it's culinary arts, making wine, like you really don't have art and culture if you don't have agriculture.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there may be a couple anomalies in there, but like really, without tillage of the land, you don't have the opportunity to create culture and art. The farmers, therefore, are the founders of human civilization. So that just summarizes the same thing. They, without farming, you don't have the ability to have a civilization. People are going to be scattered about. And there's a longer version of this quote, actually. Let me see if I can find it real quick, 'cause I think it's on here. All right, so I just took part of that quote. This is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read the whole quote. Let us never forget that the cultivation of the earth is the most important labor of man. Without the cultivation of the earth, he is, in all countries, a savage. I love it.
Savage, dude.
Until he gives up the chase and fixes himself in some place and seeks a living from the earth, he is a roaming barbarian. When tillage begins, other arts follow. The farmers, therefore, are the foundation or founders of human civilization. So, without farming, you are a barbarian. You're a savage. You have no control over your own destiny or the people's destiny around you.
Yeah.
So, farming is a very important part of my life, and that was the beginning of this brand. But when you establish a brand, you don't want to just come up with a name. And so, this all kind of came organically, and that's kind of how we make all of our brands or create them all. And this is something I think it's worth talking about, especially from an entrepreneurship standpoint.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to give you the first example of how kind of the corporate world does it. The way that they typically would do it is they get a think tank or their marketing team together, and they're like, what's the hot item today? And then they say, like, all right, we feel like this is going to resonate with a portion of the population. This brand name, this storyline, the colors of the label, etc. And they're like, okay, all signed off, ready to go. Then they say, hey, winemaking. They don't care about the land. They don't care about, the process in winemaking. Hey, winemaking, what wine do you have to fill these bottles so we can get it out to market?
Yeah.
And you're like, where the fuck is the soul in that? There's no soul in that wine. That's just like straight up marketing. And so if you take a step back and think about how the best brands are created, I think, and how they have lasting power. They start off with kind of a goal. You don't know which way that goal is going to go. It's going to ping left and right from time to time, and then you're finally going to get to a point where you're like, I like this product that I'm making, and I feel like I can emulate it or recreate it every time or every year or whatever it may be, and let's create a brand about it. And then you think, what is the storyline of that brand? And then once you have that storyline of like, this was the process how we got here from the tillage of the land all the way through to the final blend of the wine. Now, what is one storyline that encompasses all of that? And then you got to think of one name that encompasses that storyline. And this is the hard part because you don't have a fucking paragraph of a name, right? Like that just never works. So you need something that's going to be very simple and maybe not even meaningful to somebody. But the hope is that once you say it's Boen, once you buy a bottle of Boen, you're like, oh, I really like this. I want to learn more about it. Then you get another layer deeper. Maybe it's down to, okay, it's really about farming roots, and this guy, Joe Wagner, started his career in farming and started making wine. And then you get deeper and deeper and deeper until you finally realize, like, oh, this was a ground-up effort. This is like from the soil all the way through to the marketplace. And once you have that level of discovery, when people are that curious and want to know more, then you have a fan for life. You have somebody who's going to be behind your brands and understand what your ideology is, what your philosophies are, and it creates a real relationship between the customer and the brand and the people behind the brand.
Yeah. And I think like I actually have, I was going to bring up after we go through Boen, some of these other labels that kind of, I think, come from more of that marketing aspect that you're talking about, like the think take, which is just like funny names or something that will capture somebody and not tell you really, like you're talking about, have the soul and the full story.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
We're
doing that after we talk about Boen?
You want me to jump into it right now?
Let's finish because there's a lot to talk about.
I know. I didn't want to take away from that. I'm just giving a little teaser. Stay tuned. But yeah, I think that's how I've seen you do, and that's how I've seen you do work with all your brands. And actually, Boen's always been interesting to me because, like you said, it was kind of this. And I don't know if you could stop me actually if we're allowed to talk about that. But you said it was after Mayomi. There's.
So I could, you know what, I'll stop. I'll just jump right into this because there is a lot of detail about this, and it does kind of, So, okay, everybody listening, be on board for this. Just hear me through because it's going to get a little boring for a moment, but maybe just like a minute to 90 seconds, okay? So, because I got to talk about the elements of the Mayomi deal at the same time, right?
That's what I'm saying. People want to hear this stuff, right? They don't usually get this. Okay.
So the biggest issue, the biggest hurdle. So, well, first I'll start off with this company Constellation was pursuing us. It was a couple years of pursuing us, right? They're a large company, publicly traded. They wanted to buy the brand Mayomi. They had seen its growth. They had thought hey, there's a lot more we can do with this. And so I kept saying no, no, no. And then all of a sudden, they were like, well, here's like a multiple is how these deals work. It's a multiple of your EBITDA, which is your earnings before debt and like what amortization, taxes, and what am I missing something? Anyways, EBITDA.
Oh, yeah, actually, you brought up the acronym. EBITDA.
I never remember it. I'm not a corporate guy, so I'm like, whatever.
I don't think we want to remember it. Yeah. I think everyone's still good. Yeah.
So they give you. So they're like, based on the growth, we'll give you a multiple of that EBITDA.
Yeah.
And so we did the calculation real quick, and I'm like, wow, shit, that's a lot of money. Okay, well, what now? Let's actually sit down across the table. So a couple things were like, nope, not selling Bell Gloss, because they were like, we want to buy the whole thing. I'm like, no, this is just one brand Mayomi. That's the only one I'm willing to part ways with, in this deal. So the biggest issue in that deal for them was the non-compete, and a non-compete is basically saying like, we're purchasing this brand from you, and we want to make sure we're not funding our competition. You're the guy that already perfected this style of wine.
Yes.
And it's why we're buying this brand from you. We want to make sure you're not just going to come right back out and compete with us directly.
Did they say that you perfected it?
No. It's fuck you.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So and so I was like, well, I'm not going to, we had Elawan from Oregon. So it was like, you have all these carve outs of like, okay, you can keep doing this, keep doing that. You have a price band. So it's like, okay, well, say within this price band of where Mayomi resides, you can't compete within that price band. I was like, I understand that. And they were like, we have to let our shareholders know we're not funding the competition.
Yes.
It's like, okay, cool. I get that. Now it's a time frame. And they were not happy about any of this stuff, really. This it was like very contentious at times. And it was, to the point where I'm like, dude, I don't really need or want to sell this brand. You guys are the ones coming to me.
Dude.
If you guys want this deal, this is how it's going to be. I'm giving you a concession on this. I'm giving you 4 years within this price band for California Pinot Noir. That was kind of it. And they were like, so finally they signed off on it. And so the goal was, now this is where it gets a little more fun because this is where the beginnings of Boen came from. So the first thing was like, all right, I want to create a brand that really does reflect what we're doing in the vineyards and growing the vineyards and focusing on expanding in agriculture. And that's where, Boen eventually came from. But during those earlier years, I knew I couldn't compete directly in that price band of Mayomi. So we created these 3 Pinot Noirs, a Russian River Valley, a Santa Maria Valley, and a Santa Lucia Highlands, all areas we grow grapes, right? And so I was like, all right, we're going appellation specific. We're going to up tier the pricing so it's outside of the price band of what's competing with Mayomi. During that 4-year period, we're going to establish this brand as so people will know it as a quality quality coastal California Pinot producer. That was the reason for having those 3. In August of 2019, that's when the non-compete came up. And that's when we were staged to release something that would directly compete with Mayomi, which is the tri-appellation or tri-county Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. So we launched those. And then shortly after, thought, okay, the portfolio, there's not enough focus in what we're doing. We want to focus on these and the lead being the Russian River. And so then it was time to cut loose the Santa Maria Valley and the Santa Lucia Highlands.
Got it.
And use that wine for this tri-county.
Okay.
So that was the whole program, the whole plan of creating a brand in this 4-year period to come out and, now put yourself in a customer's shoes. You're saying, wow, I really like the Boen. It costs $30. The Boen Russian River Valley. Okay, it cost me $30. I really like it, and all of a sudden, I see a new wine that's $20 from Boen. I'm going to give it a shot. It's competing directly with Mayomi. Then they're like, hey, this is now my everyday wine. Like I can afford this, Monday through Thursday, and then I'll do Bell Gloss on Friday, Saturday, or whatever. Not that people just drink our wines, but you know what I'm saying. Like they just have a comfort level with being able to go to the ones that they know. And so what we did was when we started the process of kind of disbanding the Santa Maria Valley and the Santa Lucia Highlands, and then putting a lot of effort towards Boen and really upgrading, I think, the quality on the Tri-County, it set a really good foundation for the growth of this brand. And so that's it. That's where it all kind of stemmed from.
And I wanted to add too that I think, I mean, that's awesome, dude. Thank you. Actually, that was like really concise. So I was also thinking about like Meiomi, right? And I've gotten this a lot, and it's not like to be talking shit, but it's just like I think a truth to say that even if it's Meiomi, right? And I've heard like people have saying, oh, it tastes different, or like, you know, over time and everything. And we've kind of gone over about how even like the revamping of brands and stuff, like you can have a name and everything, but like sometimes you have to ask yourself, is it still the same juice inside? Is it still the same ingredients inside? As we're talking about ingredients, is it still the same thing? I mean, I just heard recently that there was something that went on with Sriracha, where Srirachas and Art, I might be throwing this one at you if you could look this up, but that the ingredients and stuff had to change on Sriracha because there was some collaboration that was going on there in the makings of it with like the peppers that like is no longer there. I think there was a little bit of drama, and so now they had to source from different places, and so like there's been a flavor change, but that's not communicated to the consumer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Why would it be?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like keep selling it. So when people are saying like, oh man, it's gonna taste something like sweeter or whatever, with like the juice has changed and stuff, it's cool to know that like you're coming out like
Well,
this
so
is it right here, like this.
so that's where like for me, I had to look at it like, am I going to be able to maintain the level of quality of this product? And we were getting to a point it was getting so big with Meiomi that I was like, I can't do that, and I'm not willing to bring it to the next level of like, you know, blowing it up in these other channels that I thought were not fine wine channels as far as where we sell wine. So it was a good time for us, or good timing for us, to be able to sell that brand, but then also focus on like, yeah, we don't want to get that big. We don't want we don't want to be the next Meiomi. We want to be of scale so that everybody can find it out there. You know, like that it's not like on allocation and like it's like, oh, you're lucky to find this stuff. Like that's one way to run in the wine business, but you also want to have a wine that pulls people into fine wine. So this is kind of the answer to that with Boen. It's like, you try this. Say you're drinking $10 wine or $15 wine on a regular basis, and then you jump up to this $20 price point. You're like, wow, that is twice as good for $5 more. Like, just that's kind of the goal. And then it's like, well, if that jump was good, I wonder what happens when I go from 20 to 40 or 20 to 50. And so it gives them confidence in being able to move up that price ladder and experience more luxury wines and really start to understand the true story behind how wines are made and everything. So that's kind of where it all went. And to your point of, do the ingredients change, or does the process change, or does the fruit sourcing change, or whatever? I have no idea. I do know I do know that there has been a discernible difference, and I hear it from the people, you know, people all throughout the land, that it tastes different. We're like, well, I'm not quite sure what they're doing.
You're like, it's not I don't do
like,
it. You're like, I don't do it. So.
Like, I don't do it, but I have this now. If you want to try this,
I have something that I do know about where it's coming from.
So it's pretty funny to see, but that is a common thing. So back to your Sriracha point, like, okay, big success has another set of hurdles ahead, right? If you're a startup business, you've got a set of hurdles that seem small. You look back on them and they're small. But then if you're Sriracha and you can't supply enough Sriracha hot sauce because you can't possibly process or grow that many peppers in whatever the region is, or if they're, I don't know what the confines are that they need to work within, then they're probably going to start outsourcing. At the end of the day, does the customer know? Probably not. Does the quality of the product change? That depends.
Yeah.
If they're able to maintain the exact same style, then cool. That's good for them, and they're able to grow their market share. But in wine, that's very difficult. And now we've seen Meiomi move from Sonoma, Monterey, Santa Barbara down to a California appellation. So obviously they were not able to keep pace with what they needed from just those coastal regions. So now where are the grapes coming from? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's not from those three. Yeah.
And I'm saying, like, as you, as a farmer, and being as hands-on and involved in everything that you do as a creator, that you're able to know, because I thought like a big point of Boen, right, is that you wanted it to represent the land that it's coming from, right?
Exactly.
So you wanted to, like, if it's the Russian River single vineyard, you want people to know what they expect from Russian River as AVA, as a land, like, but that's what they're going to be getting.
Yeah.
And you're able to constantly be, not, I'm going to say, like, you're able to be involved and like help control that and making it so, as opposed to like really caring about and actually caring, and as opposed to like not caring and being like, we're just it's selling, so let's go find
Just,
some
yeah,
other
go find
grapes or
some more,
something,
just, you know,
and if it tastes a little different and people are whatever, it doesn't.
So that's like big liquor business, right?
Yeah.
Like think of like vodka. So it's like you don't know if I mean, Grey Goose might have started off as like a tiny little brand somewhere, and then all of a sudden it started gaining market share. And like, I mean, Tito's is a good example. The guy started in his garage,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it's like he's just producing massive amounts of this stuff.
Yeah.
Now it's vodka, so it's not like you can fuck it up. It's just, but it's like now it's relying upon the brand more than it is about the quality. And I remember Tito's was great. I don't really drink vodka, but it was known to be a great vodka. So you're kind of like, look at that.
Oh, Art just brought up the numbers.
So in
sales and
the
volume for
thousands of
Tito's.
9-liter cases just from 2013. So that is 1.2. Is that right?
Is that?
Thousands of 9-liter cases, yeah. So 1.2 million cases in 2013. That's huge. To over 11 million in 2021. That's huge growth.
Dang.
So okay, so that's relying upon the brand at that point. Same thing, like you could say Meiomi is relying upon the brand, that it has built a following over the years, and now people are just kind of like running with it. Like that's something like Pabst. We talked about Pabst in the past.
When we did the whole like
Good
revamping thing,
yeah,
right? Like
good
you don't know who
quality
buys
beer.
what. Sometimes these companies sell, and
So it's good quality beer, and then somebody bought it and was like, you know what, I'm going to take this good name that the American people love, and I'm going to run it into the ground to cut costs and make as much money as possible until the only remnants of this product that are left are the intellectual property, the trademark of it, and then we're just going to stop doing it, and then somebody else eventually picked it up and revamped it. But that's kind of like, that's one way to operate a business. Not the way I want to, but like, hey, it's America. You can choose which way you want to go.
And again, I think, and that's what's great about Boen too, man, is that like, when people like, when they like see you or they're seeing you represented by the label, and you're out there in the vineyard and you got your shovel or you're out there with something like that, you're farming. Like, I like it. That's like, this is not a show. This is what you do. It's kind of like what's important to you.
Yeah.
For like the label and stuff like that. It wasn't something that was constructed in some kind of like laboratory or like some fucking think tank. Like let's make this guy.
And we've also tried to do some fun things with this. So like rather than I mean, like you see, we have our QR code on here, right? Like that's what people are like. People are like how you trying to understand how people are absorbing information, how they want to get it. We've done a number of things that didn't work, right? And when things don't work, what do? You just stop doing them. But you got to try.
Let's talk about this because I like this, man. Because you're really open about this, and it helps even for the entrepreneurship part of it. Of like, keep going on stuff that you've tried with this brand and sometimes things you find out like either don't work for the time or they kind of get outdated or whatever or not, and you kind of just have to go back to the drawing board, or you just kind of go along with it. So you said the QR code.
Yeah, so it kind of goes from that like what we were talking about earlier, where you're going from like. You want people to try the wine, get to know the brand, and then go deeper and deeper and deeper. So how do you make that process easier? So we started looking at different technologies that were out there and thought like, all right, well the like QR code pre-COVID was really not much of a thing, and so we started looking at these NFC.
The technology that was put in the cap where you could kind of tap it.
Yeah, so we were able to put it into our screw cap, and what you would do with your phone was that you would tap it, and then you'd have something pop up, and then that was like an experience in its own way, and that was it's supposed to be a program that would be kind of like a bunch of knowledge that you could ask, right? So we called it Ask Joe. That's kind of what the goal was. Problem was when we first released it, that technology to read NFTs was not NFCs.
Yeah, sorry.
Jesus. NFCs was not native in a lot of the phones. So we eventually resorted to QR codes, but just like we tried that, we did a whole run of it. I mean, it came at a pretty good cost because it was new technology and whatever else. But we tried it and learned from it and realized like this is not working. So we switched back to something else, and it's still been going on now. Now it's kind of like, well, does this education platform work? I mean, we spent a bunch of time answering questions and creating dialogue, like AI or fake dialogue. I was the one actually answering the questions.
Yeah.
And, if you look at the data, like, yeah, we had quite a few people asking it questions, whatever else. But the questions were really like dumb questions. Like, what did you do? First time you opened Siri, you're like, hey, Siri, why are you such a b-? And she's like,
Was that your first question? What? Yeah.
But that's it. So people always want to fuck with anything that is
Of
technology, right?
course, dude. Yeah,
So,
if you're gonna have
so
fun.
we tried to like inlay funny things in there,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
you know, like Siri just kind of takes the approach of like, I'm not sure I understand your question. Can you please rephrase that?
Yeah.
So like you know, I think we did a pretty good job of this, but again, the adoption rate on this is not what we expected it to be,
Yeah.
and we're seeing that people want to interact with the brand in a different way. So we're going to be cutting the Ask Joe out because it just didn't have the adoption. We're like, well, should we keep putting our time and money and everything into this? And it's like, no, the juice is not worth the squeeze in this.
But you spent, you had to come up, because I was actually wondering about this process. Like, you had to actually go in the studio, right?
Oh yeah, we
'Cause
went into
we're
like an
recording-
actual.
Actually, I was like I was messing around with this earlier, because now it's still like on the QR code. Dude, okay. I got to accept the cookies, though.
Yeah, see, that's
Can
the
we
other-
talk
that-
about
that's
this?
another-
Don't sell my personal information. At least you do have
That's
that
another
option.
barrier to entry. Like, thank God
Look,
it's
look,
not
this-
an app, but like you still got to open your
This
phone.
Okay, so you say don't. I got it. And this is not just you, but you're right. This is like everyone has
Yeah.
to go through this, where you have to like go the list, right?
This
Okay.
is another problem with our world that we live in. It's like if somebody wants to ask a question about wine, why do we have to have all these age gates and
you had
shit
to
like
find
that?
this out. Yeah.
It's
So
like
okay.
this. It's like if I click that open, I'd be like, fuck that.
Here we
I'm
go.
not using it. Hi, I'm Joe Wagner, a fifth-generation winemaker in Napa Valley. I'm the creator of Boen Wines. Ask me anything you want about my wine.
How do I grow as much hair as you have?
Did it give me an answer?
I'm sorry. I didn't understand that. Can you try it again and remember to tap and hold?
Ask him if I'm single. I don't know if I. Yeah.
Oh, actually. Are you single?
I still didn't get that. Sorry. Can you try asking me another question? Like how I make wine, or why California is such a great place to grow grapes.
So the thing doesn't work great.
Why is this so boring?
Making fine wine is not a cheap endeavor.
Okay, well, you know what?
All right. Yeah, we might just cut that part out.
yeah,
We'll
we're
see.
gonna
Yeah.
cut that part out.
I think if I were to give advice to anybody on like what you do when it comes to new technologies like that, like assess them, try them out. That's how they develop over time. But also, you've got to learn how to fail fast. Like that's one thing that I think they're always trying to push something they believe in. It's like pushing a rock uphill, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, it's not going to yield anything. And you gotta, if you can see that it's going to be harder and harder and harder, then just drop it then. And maybe at some point in the future you could bring it back up, but right now the technology is not there, the adoption rate's not there. So get rid of it and change to something else that you think might work, or just go back to the basics of what you're doing. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think it's a great brand, and it's like doing really well, and it's great to talk about that through entrepreneurship, that you gotta like throw your spaghetti against the wall, see what works, and if it doesn't, you gotta just go back and
That's
have no
it.
fear. But I think it would be great to actually go, now we can talk about what was mentioned before about some of these other brands. I had some links of like some crazy labels that I didn't even know that were out there.
I
And,
can't
like,
wait to
what's
see what
the,
you
what's
got
the
here.
story that they're telling, and like what do you think? Like what do you think about them?
This
And-
is what you picked up was the world's dirtiest wine.
well, we
man?
don't have to really concentrate on the title
No,
of the
okay.
website that we're just looking, but so this is
What the? Are you serious?
this is De Ars.
De Ars.
Oh, this is the Castilla de Ars. It's this is a big ass red blend, I think.
A big.
No, wait, sorry, that was up top. So then you have, okay, so go up top. Sorry, Art. So this first one is, I can't read the image there, but so right there, Chateau de Ars, which is just like what, like
In
Casa,
English, it's like means
Casa
ass,
is-
right?
Yeah,
Ars.
the ass. Go back. You can go down.
Yeah, keep going down. So that one sounds like maybe it's more accidental. Like that might be an actual estate. I don't know, but like it's obviously the package they're putting de Ars, like
Yeah.
Ars at the forefront. Like it's, yeah. And now you got big ass red table wine.
And so I think they also have like, so if you could see here, they have available in big ass red, which is their full yet soft, and then they also have big ass blonde, which is lush and a bit creamy.
Okay.
What do you think about that story?
I think it's horrible. I think that is like one of the worst brand names. I would imagine it's probably out of business.
I
by
don't
now.
know who that dude is. Keep going down. So we have.
No, hold on, no, Stu Pedasso. Come
Yeah.
on. That we can't skip this one
I didn't
because this one I have seen around, right? So you read it and you're like, oh, Stu Pedasso Cellars. That sounds like it's an Italian guy, right? It's got a picture of this like immigrant on the front. They got Zinfandel Port, Stu's wife's white California table wine.
Yeah.
But it's if you just say it all together, it's Stu Pedasso.
So what do you think about that?
That's a funny play on words. That's pretty funny. But I'm actually curious if I wonder if they if there's actually a guy named Stuart Pedasso.
Well, there was up in here, so I think there was a story that I was reading out. So he's the guy whose name the New York Times called unprintable. So
Okay. Well, okay, so I'll give that one a pass, but that one actually sounds like a really homegrown idea, like
yeah,
a husband and a wife with a good sense of humor, like sitting around the table, and they're like, "Well, what should you name it?" It's like, "How about Stu Pedasso?"
yeah.
Like, okay,
I kind of like those ones that are like it's not so like bold in your face, like the Ball Buster.
the
I mean,
ball buster.
I
Okay, that
can't-
is straight up like if you are into cock and ball torture, like you are, that's your thing right there.
I
The
mean,
ball buster.
are you expecting? I guess what would you expect from that wine? That it's like
I'd imagine it's big, sweet, and dangly.
like this. We laughed how the wine industry can bust your balls and cause blood, sweat, and tears. So I guess that's what.
Okay, Joe, they're literally leaning in on the whole
They're
cock
leaning
and
on
ball
the-
torture.
Yeah. So they're.
CBT. Okay, great.
Wait, yeah, go down because I think this other one is just this one's just called
The
bitch.
bitch. I've seen
bitch.
this. I
Have
don't
you
know
seen
if
this?
I
Have
don't
you
know if
had
it's
it?
around anymore. I never tried this one, but obviously it was kind of like it's all so people you can't see it. It's like this
Yeah.
very pink package, pink label, pink capsule, and it just says bitch in very pretty writing across the front. And I think they're obviously this is a marketing thing. They're trying to play into whoever they are perceiving their customers to be, which is like think of like bachelorette parties and stuff like that. It's like
Yeah.
okay, I'm buying a wine for this
Bitch,
party.
you
It's all
bitch.
girls, and it's like yeah. So I don't think it's like I'm not a fan of this. I don't like this type of marketing of wine. Old Fart. The last thing I want to put in my mouth is something that is named Old Fart. That one I'm sure did not go well.
Yeah,
Foreskin?
Old Heart.
Let's run through these a little bit quicker here. This is just getting
We're just keep going down the list. I think.
okay. If you CK, I did think this was a pretty cool.
Okay, let's
Okay, so
let's
this
go
is
that
spelled
one. This one.
if you CK.
Okay, if
spelled
you
out.
CK. Yeah.
So like, if you happen to see K, my sister, let her know she needs to call me. So it's if you CK, but it's got a cool package and a good little play on words, not super forward, but obviously FUCK is the intention when you say it out loud, right?
yeah.
They did well for a while. I remember that, and the wine was good. So that's a testament to good wine will prevail over bad branding.
And I keep seeing like they keep mentioning up here our art. If you just go like, because I saw this with bitch too, where it was like the TTB. So, and this is a process I know that you're probably familiar with too. That like, yeah, that we were mentioning here. If we went back to the bitch wine, so in the 20 years before 2001, we find not one bitch approval.
Yeah, they were very tight on not allowing any bad language on labels. But I think bitch, because it's kind of a crossover and you can actually justify it as
like
a
a female
dog. So that's the same thing with bastard, right?
Yeah.
It depends on how you use it, but it actually does have, an ass, that's another one. A donkey is an ass,
You're right. Yeah.
FUCK, not going to fly. But if you got a picture of a tatted up girl on a motorcycle and it says if you CK, they're gonna be like, oh, that's just whatever. Like it doesn't.
If you, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
right on.
let's keep
going down. Let's see what else we got.
Le vin de mer. That means the wine of shit.
Oh,
That's
dude,
it.
you're so well educated. I was like, I don't know. It doesn't offend me. It actually looks like. And do you
and
think
they got a fly on the corner.
there were some like shocking like labels I think that were for shock value too, but even like cat's pee, right? I mean, we've talked about this with Sancerre.
But that's a character that you want in the wine,
right?
Cat
Yeah.
pee. Yeah.
So if you know, you're kind of like, oh, like if there was a wine, like you're not just saying, oh, cat pee, like that's because I got like a cat's pissed on me, or like I'm pissed at like the wine industry or something like that. It's kind of like if you're actually doing that varietal, that you are actually know that you're looking for those characters, to call it that is actually, you're probably saying like this is the cat's pee. I mean, this is like the top.
Yeah, I'm sure. You know what? Why don't you launch a brand like that? That's a great idea. Just like let people know.
It's already been done though. I mean, like, but I'm just wondering, like, you're always. I think that kind of like leaves like your curiosity. You're always just kind of like, what is it? What's the juice like? I mean,
well, I just think it should always go. If you are really in the fine wine world, you should go from the ground up to, you know, if it's purely just a branding and marketing exercise. There are plenty of companies doing that, but those are not going to have long-lasting power out there, and they're not going to be respected.
What could I expect from something like? I heard you were coming out with something new, BBC.
Yeah, so that actually has a meaning, but it's a double entendre, I guess you could say. So I wanted to call it this big, beautiful Chardonnay, because it's like this. It's our biggest Chardonnay we produce, and so trying to get the name, like what would signify that, and so we were like screwing around one day, and I was like, well, BBC, and then unbeknownst to me, that means something different than big, beautiful Chardonnay.
If you're into,
I'll let you look it up.
Yeah.
And so now we put
Art
it on,
don't
so
Art like yeah, he's ready. He wants to just put that.
So we put it on the label, and we're just like BBC, and then underneath it says
British Broadcasting Corporation. That's what you were saying.
Yes.
Art, that's, we don't want people to get confused.
Yeah, we are not a broadcasting company.
Thank you.
Yeah, but no, it is one of those things. Like, yeah, you want to have, like, I mean, did that turn out to be like having a little like tongue in cheek, like how we manage the statement of BBC on the label? Yeah, like people would be like, wow, that's like brazen, and they're like, oh, but it does mean big, beautiful Chardonnay. Like, you know, it also means British Broadcasting Corporation. Like, it can mean a bunch of different things, but it could also mean something, you know,
that's big.
So, you know, what our hope was that it was something that hold on, I got this. It would also mean, it could also mean something that at the end of a hard day's work, what do you want in your mouth, right? Like BBC, big, beautiful Chardonnay.
And if you had to describe like what you expect from this, like what would it be? Like, it's coming from what? Tight wood?
Yeah, yes.
Right? And that's important.
Tight French wood. Yeah.
Tight French wood.
Yeah.
In there.
It's Napa Valley Chardonnay from two different regions, Carneros and Atlas Peak.
Yeah.
So you get some really big notes from like the riper stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like, you know, you just think like, what do you want to do with that glass? You just want to, you know, you want to wrap your hands around the base and just put it right up to your nose. And that's just
And take a big gulp. You know what I mean? Like And there's a lot of mouthfeel.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, the tannins
they're structured. It's very structured.
It's very structured.
Yeah.
They're solid.
Yeah.
They're in there.
So
fills your mouth.
That's I mean, that was kind of what we wanted to express in the big, beautiful Chardonnay.
And I think I'm sure it's going to be expressed, and I'm sure, you know, it's going to be the favorite. I mean, it's going to be what everyone really wants at the end of the day, no matter who you are.
It is, because once you've tried it, you never go back.
You don't. You do not go back.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm glad we could do that. Should we jump into horrible bosses?
I think we should jump into horrible bosses.
Send in your horrible boss stories. horrible.bosses@coppercane.com. Joe likes to read them. I like to hear them. He likes to hear them. He likes to hear himself talk. He sometimes has accents.
I like to criticize people.
He likes to criticize.
I can't believe my first job had to be with the most awful boss on the planet. Her name was Karen, fittingly enough, and she was a walking nightmare. I mean, where do I even begin with this woman? First, let's talk about her incredible timing. It was like she had an internal clock that told her when it was the most inconvenient time to call. Without fail, between the ungodly hours of 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., my phone would ring, and there she was on the other end, complaining about work issues that could have easily waited until the next morning. I don't know if she thought I was some sort of nocturnal workaholic, but it was way beyond infuriating. But Karen's technological prowess was something else entirely. In the age of Google, she somehow managed to baffle me by Googling www.websitename.com to access any website other than Google. Okay. When I dared to explain the concept of an address bar to her, she acted like I was speaking in tongues. And this, mind you, was the marketing manager, the person who was supposed to be an expert in all things internet related. Speaking of her role as marketing manager, it was laughable. Instead of focusing on her actual jobs, she seemed more interested in harassing me about my body. Even when I was active... I know, that just straight out of the gate. Just...
Does that guy just surprised you?
Even when I was actively trying to lose weight, she would make these ridiculous comments as if she were my personal body-shaming coach. There's a position in a gym. It's a personal body-shaming coach.
Personal body shaming coach.
Then there were the interruptions during my precious evening workouts. I could be in the middle of a rigorous session, sweating my heart out, and she'd call demanding that I get back to work immediately. Weekends weren't safe either. She'd interrupt my dates with my fiancé, ordering me to log in and continue working. It was like she had a sixth sense for ruining my personal life. Maybe she did. Maybe she actually knew a lot about technology, and maybe she was tracking her.
See, there we go.
Yeah.
You can't go back. Like, it's all a facade.
The pinnacle of her cruelty was when I fell seriously ill with a staph infection. I could barely stand, but she refused to let me take time off to see a doctor. I had to suffer through excruciating pain, all because she thought her demands were more important than my health. When I finally escaped that hellhole and moved on to a new job, I thought I was free from her tyranny. Oh, how wrong I was. Karen, in all her craziness, somehow managed to stalk me at my new workplace. She even had the audacity to call my new manager, who was well aware of her lunacy, to complain about a supposed grammar mistake I made. Of course, she was dead wrong, but that didn't stop her. Looking back, I can only shake my head at the sheer absurdity of it all. I never thought I'd be grateful for any boss. But Karen set the bar so low that even the most mediocre managers seemed like angels in comparison. I don't know. That sounds like either just a whole bunch of totally coincidental moments. If it's true that like she was constantly reaching out at like these inopportune times and in the middle of the night. I mean, I remember when I was in vineyard management, because I couldn't be at like all the vineyards at once, so I'd be calling like the crew foreman and whatever else, but like I'd call them at an hour. It wasn't like 3 a.m, but it'd be like 4:30, 5 a.m. But that's like when their day was supposed to get started. So it was almost like, but I guess I felt like doing when I was doing that at that time was like, number one, I want to make sure they're up and getting ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like the same thing with my kids now. It's like, double check, be like, hey, did you get out of bed? Did your alarm actually go off? Because you don't want to like the fire drill at like 7:45. But I do remember like doing that a lot, and I always felt kind of bad. Like, am I calling them at home? Like,
yeah,
is their spouse sleeping and they're like just getting out of the shower, like 10 minutes from leaving the house, that sort of thing. So like, I did feel like a little bit bad, but I just also was like, I want them to succeed as much as I want us to all succeed. And so calling in the very middle of the night and like, and off hours, like when I knew somebody was going on vacation, you're like, yeah, don't like, unless it's an absolute emergency, don't mess with them. Like let them have that time. And only on the rare occasion where there is an absolute emergency to like reach out. So I do think that that's just like a power trip thing. To me, that's a control thing. You're literally just fucking with somebody to make sure they feel like you've always got, their thumb is always on you. And I don't know. I think maybe some people just get off on like how far can they push somebody, like.
I think I think there is like type of management or people that have that like where they're just they're just fucking with you because they can and abusing the power, but maybe they feel like that it's like some kind of thing that you need to go through to show that you can. It's like some kind of like stupid test for them, but they're not. What they don't have is what you have is like compassion and like consideration. Like I think that like what you're just mentioning before is that, and you are very like that. I think that you just don't like. You wouldn't just like call someone in the middle of the night for any fucking old question.
But I think most people live in that world. There are the few that live in this Karen's world. But like, it's funny, like I've seen a lot of moms do this to their kids where they just like, it's literally just fucking with them. It's like, I'm trying. And I've seen dads too, but like, it's like, this will build character. And it's like, why did you make me do that? Like what, and you're like, just because I could, kid, like screw you. Like it's like it's. I think it's a little psychologically abusive.
But like, okay, because I'm gonna ask you because dude, you're the expert, dude. You got 6 kids, so you know what it's like being a pop. But don't you like gaslight your kids?
Well, it's not like I don't let them know afterwards.
No, yeah. That's what I'm saying. But
So
I actually never. You told me about that, and I actually was like, dude, he's actually. That's like, to me, that was a very involvement from like you're trying to teach them. It's like street smarts, right? My dad used to do that shit to me when I was even very young. You know that Rutherford Road, right?
Oh yeah.
Some cars like zooming down there. It would always be like, do not go out to the road, right?
Yeah.
And so I would like be being picked up very young, so probably like from like kindergarten, you know, kind of age or whatever. And then it might sound a little untraditional now in our climate, but it's something that I'm actually grateful they did, because you'll see in this story. But he would park on the side of the road with my door open to that street. And so as a young kid, I would open that. If I opened that door and I stepped onto that street, he would kind of come around and I'd get a little smack on the head.
Yeah.
He'd be like, I told you, don't ever step on that road. Now, in my mind, I'm like, but you parked. I'm like right there, right? And so it was, but having this instilled was like.
It taught you your surroundings.
Well, one time I was out of the house and I was like, and I was very young, and I went out to the street, and my parents, like, they were doing their thing, you know? I mean, they're just like, they're just living their life, trying to make it happen, right? And it's just like, I can't imagine the fear.
Yeah.
Like my kid, he runs out to the road, and there I am, just like a few feet from the highway, and I'm just like, owie. I'm like, no. And
See,
like, and he came out, and he's like, dude, save my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, maybe it's a little untraditional now.
Not back then. That was, probably very
that
common
doesn't
back
shock
then.
you, right? But you're probably
No.
like, yeah, that vibes with me.
Yeah.
But you probably couldn't do that now, right?
No, I never had the opportunity to do that to my kids now. But like now they live in such a different world where it's like they're seeing stuff online and hearing it from their friends or whatever else, and they just take it all as the truth. Like they don't have a bullshit filter.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you teach them to like think critically?
Yeah.
And assess the situation to a deeper level and be like, okay, well, there's got to be other opinions about this.
Yes.
Because it's so easy now to just be like, you know, oh, I saw that, like, if I drink this protein powder, I'm going to, you know, become all jacked up if I work out this much every day. And it's like, yeah, well, why don't you look at like what a healthy diet actually looks like instead of like, you know, just going based off of what you heard, whatever the fucking liver king, like that guy. He's like, I just eat raw liver and look at me all jacked up. It's like, yeah, and everybody's like, no. I'm like, no, he's on steroids. Like, it's like, no way, he's not on steroids. He told me online, he told everybody, all of his fans, he's not on steroids. It's like, and what happened? He is on steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot, like, you have to, I think you always ask yourself this simple question, and yes, there's things that we're finding out and that we'll learn, but at the end of the day, it's like, if something is really proven and works that well, you're going to see a lot of people doing it.
Yeah.
And you're going to see all those people getting those results.
Yeah.
It's just happened because people are going to try it and they're going to be like, oh, yeah, it's like, well, this works really well. You're not really seeing that.
Yeah, I agree.
For that.
Yeah.
So, and also, like, we lived in an era where we've been learning too. So I remember, like, dude, you know, when I was like going through a crazy like workout stage, I was tired of being 103 pounds. You know, and getting pushed around, want to like boost myself up. All right. Not everyone was born with muscles like you and like full hair.
Yeah, look at these. Yeah.
And so, yeah. And I was doing that. And like one of the big things too for like cutting phase then was like ephedrine was a big thing. And there was no limit on ephedrine for youth.
Isn't that?
So that was mahong. And so that.
Is that methamphetamines?
No.
Okay.
It's like a herb, but now it's like it's been controlled. They had to take a lot of the things off the market because people were dying.
Oh, okay.
Because of their heart. I mean, art, I don't know if that's even something you want to even touch right now to bring up, but again, it was something that was like available to me. I was actually messing with it a little bit. And I remember I was like getting like super like jacked up. I mean, like the heart, man, dude, that thing got you speeding. But like, yeah, people were, I mean, young people were just falling down dead.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah.
But like, those are things, right? It was in the market. It got passed by it got through the FDA.
So I mean, I think that going back to this, like, yeah, I don't think the boss was like gaslighting. I don't think the boss was trying to teach the girl a lesson. I think the boss was just being a like total prick, like being a Karen. It was like, you know, I'm gonna make it difficult for you.
They're kind of old school. I mean, I think like the whole internet thing was kind of like a tip of the hat. It's like you have people like they're trying to hold on to like the technology surpassing the times. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they probably don't feel like getting punked by someone telling them like, hey, You just put the website.
Well, and that's
in.
the funny thing in marketing is like,
You have to deal with that, yeah.
Yeah, the technology. You got to keep up with the technology, and if you don't keep up with the technology, then either somebody else that's younger that gets it, that grew up with it, is going to like surpass you very quickly.
Like print.
Like print ads versus yes.
We won't even get on that. Maybe that'll be like a next episode.
All right. Well, hey, signing off. Thank you for joining Chris and myself, Joe,
Oh my
for
gosh!
Go With Your Palate. We forgot to even introduce the
But
goddamn
we have
show.
like Wet Your Palate.
Yeah.
Okay, wait.
Okay.
Welcome to Go With Your Palate with Joe Wagner and Fat Mario, Chris Rubio here. All right. We talk about wine, entrepreneurship, and whatever the fuck else.
There it is. All right. Thank you all.
Peace.